All right, so we're just gonna keep calling it out. We're gonna keep talking about it. I know that one option when things go a little bit different than planned is to just play it off and not let anybody notice anything happen. Another option, which oftentimes is the option I prefer for theological reasons, is to acknowledge it. So I've just heard that our Canon camera
It's recording when it wants to.
it's recording when it wants to, and we've got a second camera also recording when it wants to, but sometimes it's supposed to follow me, and sometimes it decides not to follow me and to follow like a candle or something. And so that's going to be fun for those of us who are watching things at home. And while we're having fun and while we're being informal, because I said it's a holiday, we're doing a holiday Sunday service, let's continue to be informal. I was going to do a time with God's children. And we've got two children who are siblings who came here in costume, and I'm really excited for them. But I think that it might be a little high pressure if I call them forward and do a time with God's children. You guys tell me if you want to come forward. But otherwise, I think what I'd like to do is a time with God's children with all y'all. Or did somebody not? What do we think, George and Eliza? You want to come forward, or you want to do it with everybody?
They want to do it with everybody.
They want to do it with everybody. That's what I thought. I'm working. We got to get to know each other. I'm still trying to get to know Liddy. You know, you have a baby. You got to meet that baby. I know you made them, but you have to get to know them. I'm doing the same thing with George and Eliza. So here's what I want to talk about for the time with God's children. And I want y'all to be responsive if you dare, right? So talk back to me. Pretend that you're in elementary school and the pastor's invited you forward and you're sitting on this step. You do that for me? Cool. All right, first of all, I want to start with this. I know a really good joke. Somebody want to hear? This is the best knock-knock joke ever. Are you ready for the best knock-knock joke ever? Oh, Joyce is ready. All right. Oh, yeah, Joyce. Okay, you ready? Best knock-knock joke ever. Okay, you start.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
You can't start it.
Isn't that great? You see what I did there? George, you catch that? I tricked her. Right? And how did I trick her? What I did was I took something and I flipped it around. And I did the opposite of what was expected, and that resulted in laughter. It's a kind of funny thing if you try, you know how if you explain a joke, it ruins it? But like, what makes us laugh? And one of the things is like the unexpected. I heard a story. The reason I did that is to illustrate this other idea, which is about some really cool trick-or-treaters I heard about. There was a group from college. And you know, you start to get older and people start saying you're too old to trick-or-treat. And the thing you can do instead of trick-or-treating is go to parties, which is kind of not cool. The really cool thing, the dream, is when you can stay home and give out candy. But you know, when you're in that middle age, between like teenager and owning your first home, it's just, you're like drinking or you're nothing. And these college kids, they decided they were going to do something special. And what they did is they made a door. But you know, you can imagine a bunch of college boys, a big door, and they put little posts on it, and they carried the door around the neighborhood, right? And then they put the door up to someone's door, and then they'd knock on the door. And the door would open, people would open the door, and in front of their door would be a door. And there was like a note on it that said, you know, please not to trick or treat. And so you can imagine, right? Like I'm at my house, I'm with Lydia and Tiffany giving out candy. I open the door, there's a door. It says not to trick or treat. So I knock, the door opens, these college boys have gray hair wigs and beards and old like flowered style dresses. They're dressed like old people. And they've got a big bowl of candy, and they hand you candy. So they're going door to door, are getting trick-or-treated to trick-or-treat, and they're handing candy to them instead of getting candy from them. Isn't that funny? I find that really funny. It's kind of like the reverse knock-knock joke, right? And it's just dressed up and like, oh, okay, now I've got candy. They don't know what to do with it. It's a funny thing.
It's weird.
It's a little weird. It's a little weird, and I'm a little weird. I get it. But I tell that story to tell a third story, and this is my last one, I promise, about the ultimate trick-or-treater. The ultimate trick-or-treater flipped it even one more time, and his name was Martin Luther. And what Martin Luther did is he knocked on a door, but it wasn't a door to a house. Or rather, it wasn't a door to a human's house. It was a door to a church. And when he knocked on that door, he was knocking because he was hammering in a piece of paper. And that piece of paper was called the 95 Theses. And what it said in the 95 Theses was either a trick or a treat, depending on who you are and how you take it. It was a document that said, listen, church, we're not doing good enough. Listen, we can do better. Listen, we are saved by grace alone because of God's love for us, not because of what we do. And we can live into that in a new way, and we don't need these like big institutions telling us who's right and who's wrong and who's good and who's bad. We can just love God and love each other. And certain people who were part of the big institutions got pretty tricked by that. They were not a fan. And certain other people who were more open and interested in the new thing God was doing, they really thought that was a pretty huge treat. In fact, so much so that it changed the world. I mean, in no uncertain terms, this trick-or-treater, this guy Martin Luther, who knocked on a door with one piece of paper, and people started talking about it. And you know what happened when people started talking about it? Just like, you know, I heard about these college kids, they didn't live in my town. I heard about it on YouTube, right? It went viral. That's what we call it. Well, Martin Luther's little paper went viral too. There was this guy named Gutenberg, and he had just invented a copy machine. And he made copies. And those copies started spreading, and people started talking about this document, and it created something called the Reformation, the Reformed Church. And that's what it means when we talk about at St. John's. We're a Presbyterian church, and we're Reformed in our theology, that we have theology that comes out of this trick-or-treat idea, this idea that, hey, God loves you as you are, and we can do better. And after we start to do better, you know what we can do then? We can do better again. And after we start to do better again, you know what we can do then? We can do better again, because God is that much better than us. So we improve and we improve and we improve. And we reform and we reform and we reform. We are the Reformed and Reforming Church. And you know what day that happened on? Halloween. October 31st. So every October 31st, when you see people dressing up in costumes and knocking on doors, I hope you have a good time with that, but I hope you also remember the best trick-or-treater, the reverse trick-or-treater. In fact, the double reverse trick-or-treater, this guy Martin Luther. Is that pretty cool? All right. If that's pretty cool, let's remember that just as Martin Luther offered himself, risked his life, in fact, and put himself out there for God, we're invited to too. And we do that with our service to the church. We do that with our financial offerings. We do that with our worship. So let's dedicate ourselves to God in offering, and let's listen to Kirsten offering for us an anthem.